Welcome to the season podcast, episode 26. This is the day after Wild Card Weekend. Tonight, obviously the Pittsburgh Steelers host the Houston Texans, and tomorrow will be our main show for the week, episode 27, reacting to all of Wild Card Weekend, including tonight's game. But the reason we're doing today's show is obvious, and that is the Eagles, as the 3 seed, hosted the San Francisco 49ers and got beat 23-19 in a very frustrating game. We talked a lot about the Eagles on this show over the course of the year. Got Nick's opinion on a number of different concepts and thoughts. And I was quite frustrated, Nick, after yesterday's game. I'm obviously pulling for the Eagles in that one and hoping they'd be able to find a way to beat a depleted 49ers team at home after having 2 interceptions. The Niners had the Niners had 2 interceptions. Niners had a 27-yard punt. Niners lost George Kittle in the middle of the game to a torn Achilles. They are as depleted as it gets. And the Eagles, still being relatively healthy this time of year, could not figure out a way to win at home. Extremely disappointing.
Yeah, it's a disappointing end of the season, and it really played into the theme of the season is what's going on with the offense, and the constant everything's gonna be okay. We're figuring it out. Like, we're winning. We won the NFC East. I think everyone knew the entire year there was just it was a weird year. Because it's just such a talented team. When we had Richard Sherman on the show the other day, a lot of talk is on the offense. And I thought he explained it perfectly with his illustration. It's like you have a Ferrari and you put a Toyota Corolla engine in it. And you have all the pieces. It looks like a Ferrari, but it just doesn't run and sound like a Ferrari. And that was the Eagles' offense this year. And I know it's really frustrating for them. I haven't talked to anyone over there. I'm letting everything just settle in. I'm sure I'll be in Philly at some point in the following months. I think anytime Big Dom has more catches than A.J. Brown in the second half, it's going to be a bad thing. It's just frustrating because all year, and even when we were talking to Richard Sherman, if you guys haven't listened to, go check out our previous podcast with Richard. It was a fantastic conversation. I like to be, Philadelphia. I love Philly. I try to be optimistic like I was as a quarterback, even when things aren't going well. I always believe that we can turn it around. I've been a part of that. In 17, it's a big thing. Like, at the end of the year, we weren't like super sharp, but I kept believing, we kept believing, and we were able to do something because we kept believing. And I was hoping that the Eagles did that this year with the offense because they have the parts. It looks like a Ferrari. It ran like a Ferrari last year. All these parts. And the engine's a little different. It was the same old story, which is frustrating. The amount of points they scored with the opportunities they had, the outcome of the game. And we'll get into the last play of the game, which I believe summarizes the game very well. But stay tuned till the end to hear our assessment of the last play of the game.
Yeah, Nick, we've talked so many times this year on so many different episodes about trying to identify what those issues are, right? We're not going to rehash all those things. We know this team was really good defensively. We know this team didn't run the ball as well this year as they did last year. And I understand Lane Johnson didn't play in this game, but there were games Lane Johnson played in this year where they also struggled to run the ball. And obviously having Lane would have helped, but that wasn't the only issue. And so this team was forced many times over the course of the year to lead with their pass game. And from a schematic standpoint and creativity standpoint, it wasn't good enough. And from an execution standpoint, even when the play call was right, it generally was not good enough. So the Eagles in the second half this year, which is obviously when things get super important, is the second half of games. The Eagles, including the playoffs, have scored 9 points per game in the second half this year. That's number 26 in the NFL. Their yards in the second half this year, 147 yards per game in the second half. That's also number 26 in the NFL. Their point differential in the second half this year, including the playoffs, minus 16. That's 20th in the NFL. They have been outscored by their opponent by 16 points on the season in the second half of games, right? So it's obvious that offensively things were dysfunctional, right? And it's so some of the logical reactions we've heard from fans since the end of last night's game is blow it all up, right? You hear some fans saying that, right? Should Nick Sirianni even be kept around? And one of the questions I had, because I understand Kevin Patullo's been under a lot of fire, but as I was thinking about some people's reaction of what they should move on from their head coach, and I'm not suggesting they do this because that would be obviously very extreme given the success that Nick has had there since he got there. But it did get me thinking about this in the context of John Harbaugh and like Matt LaFleur. I got a question for you. If Nick Sirianni were fired today, basically a year after winning a Super Bowl, which is like unprecedented, right? If Nick Sirianni were fired today, do you think there would be other teams beating down his door to hire him as a head coach?
Yeah, I mean that's a good question.
The fact that I have to ask it, and
No, it's an intriguing
before you answer,
question.
let me say this too. John Harbaugh, Matt LaFleur. John Harbaugh has won a Super Bowl, obviously, right? Matt LaFleur has not. But those guys both, I'm using those guys as an example. They have very identifiable strengths that you can say, like John Harbaugh is a leader, a culture setter, hires a great staff. He has all these boxes you check where if you're a team, there at least 4 of these 8 teams, maybe 6 of these 8 vacancies are like, those are the skills that I want here. They're exportable skills. They can be exported to the team that he's going to, right? Matt LaFleur is known as, even if you don't love his, clock management down the stretch, Matt LaFleur is like an offensive guru that can bring a young quarterback along as a really good play caller. That can be exported to a new organization. I honestly, and I'm not advocating firing Nick Sirianni, but I honestly, as I look at the Eagles and I try to identify what Nick Sirianni's strengths are, I struggle to find exportable skills that some other team is going to be like, hey, by the way, if the Eagles move on from him, we've got to go get that guy because this is what he does well. Boom, boom, boom. I struggle to identify those things. So maybe look no further than that struggle, assuming I'm not alone in identifying these things, as, whoa, this is a problem, right?
No, I think it's a good question. I think you bring up some great points. I've been around Nick. I like Nick. I haven't been around him a lot, but I like the time I got to sit down in his office, a year or so ago and just have a conversation. Obviously, I'm close with Frank Reich. I know Frank thinks the world of Nick Sirianni. Nick's success in his time in Philly is unparalleled. It's amazing how he started his years in Philly. He's done a great job. He's a Super Bowl champ. He's taken him to another Super Bowl. But I would say this, there's a couple of things that are alarming. And I know I'll be in Philly and I'll see Nick again. And, I really like him. But the thing that alarms me is this. If you see, he's an offensive head coach. He knows an offense. He knows offense supposedly. Whenever he hasn't had a Shane Steichen calling plays or Kellen Moore, they've really struggled with the Ferrari they have. Because Howie Roseman has put together a team that is spectacular. It is a Super Bowl winning team. They showed it last year. They showed it with Kellen Moore with the creative play calling. They still have the players. They didn't lose a lot of the players. They have the players. They have the guys. The thing that I guess gets me and it's frustrated me all year. I wouldn't say frustrated. I'm not going to get frustrated about it. We're getting to do this podcast. I'm happy that we get to talk ball.
But it's frustrating. It's frustrating.
Is if you're an offensive head coach and you have that and that's your thing you go to and you're really good at it, you can fix this. You can find a way to fix it. What you do is
mid-season,
you can fix it. You take over play calling if that's what your strength is. Because there's a lot of coaches that have the ability to call plays, but they want to be like the CEO. They want to handle the team and be the head coach, and they want to trust their play caller. This was a situation this year where I was waiting for Nick Sirianni, and they're going to find out. You're going to find out he was giving input all the time. Like he was talking in his headset, hey, let's run this, let's run that. But I'm talking if you have that ability, like a Matt LaFleur or Shanahan, who are calling plays, like you take it over and you right the ship because you have the skill set, the O-line, the skill players, the quarterback.
It'll cost you your season if you don't.
Yeah, and
right?
it did. It did cost him his
right.
season, like a Sean McVay sort of thing. So that's the thing to me that is alarming is how he was not able to fix it and how they never really showed improvement until they played bad teams.
It makes me wonder if he can.
Obviously that's not his skill set.
Any sane, rational individual that's in a self-preservation mode of trying to win and not lose your job for that matter will step in if they have the skills and right the ship.
Yeah.
And so it makes me wonder is if he's capable of it, of stepping in and saying, hey, Kevin, step aside for a sec. I've got to fix this, right?
Yeah. No.
And it makes me wonder if he can, right?
No, that's not in his skill set. I mean, let me finish with this. And he needs, and they're going to go out this offseason. They're going to find an offensive coordinator. They might get a Mike McDaniel. They're going to find like a Kellen Moore, maybe a young and up-and-coming offensive coordinator. They might even go get a Brian Daboll. They're going to go get a guy that's very creative offensively that can utilize the skill set, that has proven that he can utilize the skill set. Like Brian Daboll showed he's not a head coach, right? But he might be a great OC. Kevin Patullo this year, I've been impressed with how he's handled the situation, but he is a great coach. He was a passing game coordinator. They won a Super Bowl. He's had a lot of success. So he's still a great coach, but he's not an OC, Kevin Patullo. But he's not an offensive coordinator. There's guys that
I
are
rode
great
with you
at
on
their
that midseason, but now I'm like, oh my God.
Well,
Look
dude,
at this.
I've been with guys that were position coaches that got, then all of a sudden they became OCs. They sort of changed their personality and they weren't great OCs because they didn't call plays at the right time. They just, black and white, they didn't have the feel of the
Yeah.
game, but they were
Right.
really good at their position coaches. They were a great receiver coach, quarterback coach, whatever it may be. It's hard to be a great OC, just like it's hard to be a great quarterback. I've seen guys be great scout team quarterbacks that then step on the field for a real NFL game. They are not any good, but they're great in practice. It's a psychological shift. It's a mindset shift. Tomorrow when we record the next podcast, we're going to talk about the mentality of teams that keep coming back, like the Bears and stuff, and why are they struggling in the first half of games. It's a mental approach, but you got to stay tuned for the next episode to hear that. That's going to be a fun conversation.
Nice tease.
But that being said, they're going to have to go out there. It's obvious they're going to go out there and they're going to get rid of some offensive coaches. They're going to restructure. They're going to have to. The fan base is too passionate. Mr. Lurie he knows Mr. Lurie, hey man, he's around all the time. He's at every game. He's in the locker room. He goes out to practice. He wants championships just like every owner, but that guy's there all the time. And Howie has built that if he didn't have the roster, I get it, man. You got to get the pieces. But I'm telling you, if you gave Sean McVay or you gave Shanahan or you gave Matt LaFleur like this roster, they're going to do something probably pretty special with it. I don't know if Matt LaFleur, they'd probably lose they'd probably get up by 28-3 and lose. But
the beautiful thing about this is like the game tells the truth, right? And like you look at what happened with the Eagles yesterday, and then ironically they're playing against a team. So here you have an Eagles team that's finding a way to get the least amount they can out of a good roster.
Yeah.
And then you have a Niners team who really didn't have a whole lot left, especially after George Kittle getting hurt, decimated, at linebacker. They've lost so many good players this year, and they got the absolute most. It was a clinic coaching wise. It was, you know what it was, Nick? It was a coaching mismatch is what it was.
It was. It wasn't an on-field.
Mismatch.
It was not a – listen, I remember at the University of Arizona, I remember my senior year, we were playing UCLA. We had – unfortunately, Mike Stoops had just been fired, and the coaches were sort of against the wall, and they let me do the game plan for the week, which I actually enjoyed doing. I got to put in all my favorite stuff, and in pregame warmups, we all looked over at UCLA, who had all these 5-star guys, 4-star guys. At Arizona, we didn't have that. We had to develop 0-star, 2-star, and I was a 3-star. Like, we developed. Man, they won the pregame warmup, but we were up 42-0 at halftime. And we weren't a good team that year. We weren't good. But it just shows you, like, I might have gave myself a pat on the back because I technically was the coach that put in the game plan. But my point is this. It's not if you did the pregame, like, assessment of the teams when they were warming up, man, Eagles win that assessment now, listen, the 49ers have great players. Don't get me wrong. It's the NFL. The Eagles win that matchup. But then I agree with you. The coaching matchup, that's what lost them the game. And it was more the Eagles' offensive side of the ball. I mean, the defense, Vic Fangio's defense gave the Eagles' offense opportunities. They just didn't excel. And we're getting closer to the point of the last play of the game. We're not there yet, so keep listening. But I don't know. I think I don't even have all my emotions in check like most Eagles fans. I have a lot of thoughts. But I know as a quarterback, man, you just got to take a breath sometimes and let them all set in. And I know we'll talk about this more in the weeks following when decisions are being made. But, man, it definitely was a coaching mismatch. I agree with you.
All right, I mentioned how some of the reaction out there is, we need to move on from Nick Sirianni, and let's just assume, because I don't think we believe that's going to happen, let's just assume that's not going to happen. What I do believe needs to and probably is happening as we speak pretty quickly after the season is Jeffrey Lurie, Howie Roseman, management sitting down with Nick Sirianni and saying, okay, obviously for the better part of the year, we had a fantastic defense. Vic Fangio, nice job, man. Have a nice vacation. But Nick, we got to talk, right? Nick Sirianni, we got to talk. We got to talk about a detailed plan for next season offensively, because this will nothing even remotely close to this will fly next year. And no disrespect personally to Kevin Patullo. Sure, he's a good dude. But that name can't even come up in the conversation as what the plan is for next year. If it does, full stop. Like if you're married to that Nick Sirianni, we're moving on. That's how extreme I feel about this. And I have not been that for the better part of this season. I have said, look, Kevin needs to improve. They're not running the ball as well, which we got to give him a little slack there. And that's not all Jeff Stoutland's fault either, because they haven't always been healthy up front. But this is a team that needs to lead with the run. And when they're forced to be a drop back team with Jalen Hurts, it's not a strength of his. They're not going to look good doing it, right? So I gave Kevin Patullo at times a little bit of grace. But now, given where we are at the end of this season, especially on the heels of the final play, which we're agreeing was kind of a microcosm of the whole season, as we talk about the plans for next year, if I'm Jeff Lurie, if I'm Howie Roseman, and Nick Sirianni even brings up the name Kevin Patullo, we're moving on. I don't want to hear it. Like I'm sorry, I do not want to hear it. I need new names. I need new faces. We are completely moving on from everything about this Eagles offense this year. We are with the exception of Jeff Stoutland, we are completely moving on. I think that is mandatory as part of the discussion.
Yeah, I mean, they got to see. I mean, my guess is with the frustrations. I mean, I've been on teams where it's been frustrating. You can always tell within the walls, like in the coaching staff, where there's just which pieces, which position coaches are frustrated with the other ones because are not getting along, or you can just feel it. So they're going to have to go through that and say like, all right, this guy's got to go, this guy's got to go. I don't know how it is with Kevin Patullo with the relationships. I mean, I feel like he's respected, obviously, Nick Sirianni. I don't know if this is like a Brent Pry situation where, he all of a sudden gets hired back because, at Virginia Tech, he was off the head coach and got hired back as the defensive coordinator when James Franklin came in and just switched roles. I mean, that you have to humble yourself. You're the head coach at this university. And then it's Vance Joseph in Denver. He was the head coach in Denver. And now he's the defensive coordinator. Is this a situation with Kevin Patullo where he loves Philly and wants to be in Philly and believes in Philly and has a great relationship, where he is demoted to a passing game coordinator, and then they bring in a guy like a Kellen Moore or a guy like a Shane Steichen that is a Mike McDaniel who's on the road, Brian Daboll, because they believe he's a good coach. He's just not an offensive coordinator. That's also in the discussions where
okay.
I don't know that. Like, I'm not in the walls. It all goes back to the relationship.
When I say that about Kevin, I'm talking mostly like not in a leadership role offensively.
Yeah,
like, if you're gonna move him to a position coach, fine. I don't care about that. I'm talking about,
that's what I'm saying. Like, I don't necessarily believe he'll be fired. Like, if he's that close with Nick Sirianni and they have a great relationship, and maybe Kevin handled himself throughout the season in a really great way and grew as a person, man, maybe he's a guy you want on your staff, just not as an OC. Like, you just don't know. And those are the things that are going to be interesting. I think in a few weeks, like having like Big Dom on this show would be pretty epic. After they make decisions,
about that catch. He's got to catch that with his hands, though. Like Tom
I know,
Brady was right. No body catching.
He said
Tom.
he had a better one last week or something. Yeah. He said he caught it with his hands.
So the last time, it's worth mentioning, as Eagles fans know, last time this team crashed and burned in the postseason after kind of falling apart during the regular season was in 2023, where they started 10-1. Things didn't feel right, and they ended up losing to Tampa on the road in the first round. What happened then? They fired both coordinators, right? So Nick has been here before. Nick Sirianni has, right? He went and got Vic Fangio and Kellen Moore. Both of them were smashing hits. Vic Fangio, you hope, like, obviously he's going to stick around. They're not going to want him to leave unless he voluntarily decides to leave, which is not going to happen. And now they're back in that similar role of like, okay, we've got to find someone else to run this offense. That's going to be one of the best storylines in the next 2 months.
I'm not even
what's
convinced
next for the Eagles of running the offense.
I'm not even convinced Nick Sirianni was the one who went and got Kellen Moore. Like, I mean, there might be articles about this. I just haven't dove into all
the organization did, is my point.
Yeah, yeah. I mean? Well, let's just break that down a little bit more, though. Like, when it's been Nick Sirianni hiring from within the guys he likes, it hasn't gone well. When it's been guys that, like, Shane Steichen came in early, but then Kellen Moore, like, when Nick Sirianni was up for the head coaching job, you know who he was going against? He was going against Kellen Moore. Mm-hmm. Like, Kellen Moore was interviewing to be the head coach of the Philadelphia Eagles. So, Mr. Lurie, his family, Dom, because Dom's at all this stuff, they're vetting Kellen Moore. They're vetting Nick Sirianni. They know these coaches, and I guarantee you they kept an eye on Kellen Moore. And when it crashed and burned with Brian Johnson, they were like, hey, Kellen Moore is going to be the OC. We're bringing him in. We know he's good. He almost was the head coach. Like, he's going to be your offensive coordinator. I think this is another – I mean, when you win a Super Bowl like Nick Sirianni did, you get the grace to choose who you want to be. Like, you want Kevin Patullo? Good. Like, we're going to keep doing sort of what Kellen – you can sell that because it's like, hey, we're just going to do what we did last year. Obviously, they didn't. It was a very different offense. It's going to be another thing. I don't know. They've been vetting coaches. They've been looking at coaches all season, I guarantee you. They have a short list, and especially with these head coaches like McDaniel, who's been fired, Brian Daboll has been fired, they've been watching them. They've been studying the offense. They've been seeing the success of the offense. Maybe they weren't good head coaches, but, man, they were good play callers. I'm telling you, they already got a plan in place. They're not just caught off guard by this. They've had all season to prepare. I think at the halfway mark, we knew what was going to happen, but Eagles fans and football fans were thinking like, hey, maybe they'll figure it out. They never did. But I guarantee you, behind closed walls in a secret little dungeon, someone was researching who the next OC of the Philadelphia Eagles will be.
That's a really good point. All right, to put a bow on this, we're not going to dive into every play of the game, obviously, but
no, we don't need to. The last play says it all.
The 4th and 11 play told us a lot about it's a microcosm of a lot of things we talked about all season long. So There was a timeout called. You see Jalen Hurts in like a little mini huddle with Nick Sirianni and Kevin Patullo, and even AJ Brown was there and other coaches. I We've said this many times this year. I'm a little concerned why I don't see a more, I don't want to overanalyze this, but a more back and forth about what the right play call is. They had plenty of time to pick the right play, right? I think it's been obvious over the course of the year that Jalen Hurts either is not comfortable or is not being given the leeway to change plays at the line of scrimmage. If he sees something he likes, to be able to like signal out to one of his best receivers, hey, run this route instead. For a guy that's been to 2 Super Bowls and been in the league as long as he has with all this success, you'd expect that kind of synergy and freedom with receivers, which is odd that he hasn't developed that. I've seen that with guys that don't have nearly the experience he has, and they still do it, right? And this is what we get. I'm going to share the screen here shortly, but on 4th and 11, everyone's seen this. They go 4 verticals against a cover 4 look. It was a little bit disguised, but when you run cover 4, when a defense runs cover 4 and you go all verticals, it's tough, right? Those slot receivers and that tight end are not really an option because the safeties play so tight to the hash. And you might have a different perspective, Nick, but I can speak from playing tight end and running a vertical against a cover 4 safety. It's tight, especially in the red zone. There's not much room to throw that ball. I'm surprised that's where Jalen went on 4th and 11. Quarters, in a lot of ways, on the outside mimics man-to-man. You get one-on-one looks on the outside. You got to take a shot to AJ Brown. I'm sorry, like you got to do it. If that's the play they're going to call, you've got to do it. You can't throw into triple coverage with your tight end. So I'll share my screen and you go from here.
Share the screen, but before you play it, let me say this: when they showed the clip of Jalen being over there with Nick Sirianni and Kevin Patullo, the thing that I want to see Jalen more
participating in the discussion,
aggressive with it. Let me tell you this from a quarterback's perspective, because that's what people want to hear. In these moments, these are big moments in games. These are season-defining moments. I guarantee you, every single time I was in a season-defining, stressful moment, I had a play that I wanted called.
I can think of one in particular. If you want to give an example.
Let's go to the example. It's like, okay, the Philly special is for sure that. Hey, then let's go the next year against the Chicago Bears in the playoff game on 4th and 1. I went up to Doug. I wanted Q8 because we had the formation kill 34W. Boom, boom, boom. They were doing 0-0 hole. It was too hard to see. I said, I'm just calling Q8. We're gonna live and die with Q8. We're gonna go on the run. Golden's gonna win. We're running Q8. In this moment, as a quarterback, you have plays, and as an offensive coordinator, the head coach, you can suggest a play. But when you call a timeout and you're discussing everything on the sidelines, I'm asking my quarterback, what do you like right here? Here's the call sheet. Because that's what the coaches would do with me. When I was on teams where I was a leader and it was like a high-functioning offense and I was excelling, they'd be like, hey, what do you like? What do you want to call? Chicago Bears, when I played the Atlanta Falcons, Matt Nagy, when he threw me in the 3rd quarter or 4th quarter, he's like, you just call all the plays, everything you want. I called the rest of the game for the most part as a quarterback. And this would be my challenge going into the next season. And this is Jalen Hurts' next step. They're going to have to, in offseason training, when they get together and do practices, they're going to have Jalen call it periods where, hey, Jalen, it's you. Hey, we'll give you, if you want a call sheet, have a call sheet. Or if you want to run a play in no huddle, you call the 2-minute. They might already be doing this, but I think the next step in his progression, I think he's great when they call plays and he runs plays and they're on the same page. He's shown that. He's a Super Bowl champion, Super Bowl MVP. I believe Jalen Hurts can be even better and better and better and better. His next thing is in the moments like this, I want to see him vocal on the sidelines. I want to see, listen, you went spread right, 3-jet, all go to win the game on 4th and 11 on
That's
your
what we're
own
looking at right here on the
21.
screen, right?
And I'll tell you this, that discussion on the sideline, I will say this. They know from film study 100% when they go double mug, and they know in this situation, they probably told Jalen, hey, historically 4th and 1, we did the 4th down cut-ups. Hey, they're going to double mug this. They're going to bail. We're going to put Saquon to the field. Kendrick's is going to open to the field.
You got double mug here. I'm circling with my cursor. You got backers right here that are double mugged up in the A gaps. That's what Nick's talking about with double mug. They're making it look like they're bringing pressure. And if there's pressure like that, it wouldn't be cover 4. So they're disguising it pre-snap is what you're saying.
They're disguising it. But I have to believe with this that they're thinking, hey, they're going to bail. Because, I mean, Jalen doesn't seem too worried about it. And, I mean, if I get – and they have all go on. If they thought they were blitzing, they would have had, like, slants on or something. And anyway, they put Saquon to the field. They said, hey, we're going to put Saquon to the field because we know Kendricks is going to open up to the field, which he does open up to the field. Hey, this is going to get you. I mean, quarters is not great to have a bender anyway, but hey, we're going to get you Dallas Goedert on a bender, and you're just going to fit it right in there. The problem was he didn't have any other answers. If you know it's going to be cover 4 soft coverage and you're going to take that, you need to put a 14-yard pivot outside, or you need to do a little alert thing and say, hey, just run a 14-yard pivot and if they collapse on Dallas right here. It's just a very simple, non-complex play. I mean, if you're going to do this too, maybe get some crossers coming to you, a shallow route. Like you're literally living or dying with a day one install play, a first play and 2-minute play. A play I scored on in my first preseason game play was double right or spread right, 3-jet all go. There's no juice in this play. There's no corner route. There's no dagger coming in. It is literally mano a mano. And I love that if you're good at that, but you have not been good at that all year. Yeah. Give Jalen something more of that. So this play is a microcosm of simplicity and just saying, players, you make us look good and you get us there. The players got you a NFC East championship. The players got you into this game, but there's got to be plays. The coaches have to dial up some plays with a little more juice, and this play just didn't have juice.
So when Nick talks about quarters or cover 4, same thing. This corner, I'm circling with my cursor here.
He's got a fourth. He's got a quarter.
This safety, this corner. They all are dropping straight back, and they have their 25 or quarter of the field. And so what usually ends up happening, these guys, unlike cover 2, where they're going to get width, these guys end up staying tighter on the hashes. So it's really hard to throw to these slot receivers with 4 verticals because these guys are so tight to the play. So if you bend in front of them, especially in the red zone, there's not much room because they're not backing up that much, right? Whereas another way to look at cover 4 is you basically get man-to-man on the outside. It's even though it's a zone coverage, you're basically one-on-one on the outside. So if Jalen is able to recognize, okay, this is quarters, he's going to understand this ain't the throw to Dallas Goedert. The throws on the outside to your best receivers in one-on-one situations. Look, to be clear, I don't love throwing a jump ball on 4th and 11, but if this is the play that's called, the only viable option here on 4th and 11 to ensure you're going to get a first down if there's a completion, he's not going to throw to the back, is to hit A.J. Brown as this guy backs up, either on a back shoulder ball or throw it up and let him go get it. That's the only one-on-one situation you have in this whole play. So I'm going to run it. This is not a great view of it. It's not the L22. It's the TV copy. But take a look at this. Those guys all back up. You got AJ up top. AJ's one-on-one up top, and instead you throw to a safety who's really tight on number 2.
So, like, whenever I had all go versus cover 4, and I knew maybe I wanted to peek the middle, maybe I have a Dallas Goedert or Zach Ertz who I know is great in and out of breaks. I want to give him a chance, especially when the game's on the line. I want to give my best pass catcher in this game a chance. I think he had, 2 touchdowns in this game? So, but if I know it's quarters, I always gave myself another option. So what we would do is I'll be like, hey, I don't want that route outside to be dead, just in case the worst case scenario happens and they take this route away. I would single like an alert or a hinge, which is a 14-yard stop route. And if you look at that play, the corner's technique is sort of a bail body inside technique. He's looking through the offensive line at Jalen Hurts' drop to see what's going on. If you add a hinge, and this is the next level of Jalen Hurts, is just taking ownership of this offense in that situation where you know, hey, I'm going to Dallas Goedert right here. I'm just going to give myself a bailout. I would always give myself a bailout just in case something bad happens. My receiver fell down. Just give a hinge. It's really easy to do that. And anyway, in that situation,
so Nick,
if you look at it,
the hinge you're talking about right
14,
here.
Just think about that. If that's a 14-yard stop route, and say Jalen wants to read it, and he drops back and he's wanting to throw Dallas. Man, there's 3 defenders there. Kendricks does a great job opening up to the field, but he reads Jalen's eyes and spins right back to Dallas. So
right here,
there's not a window right there. But if he takes a quick reset and just fires it outside, it's a first down. That's what I'm talking about, like layers on layers on layers. Like as a quarterback, I'm trying to give myself the maximum amount of options in a play. If I know I'm not, and I only do that if I know I'm not throwing the go. If I know there's a chance I might throw the go to A.J. Brown, which I do not think that Jalen Hurts was throwing the go at all to A.J. Brown right here, I am going to be in the huddle, say, hey, we used to call it like this play, like with the hinges, Raider, but Oakland was all go. So if we wanted all go, we called Oakland. If I thought I might work the hinges, I'd be like, hey, we want Raider. And if I did not know, I would say, hey, let's go all go, alert hinges. So I could do like a hard count, see what's going on. All right, they're quarters. Hey, alert. It bought me another route in a 4th and 11 situation where I don't just want to live and die in one route in this situation. If it's 4th and 3 or something, you're probably like catching and releasing, boom. Man, I wish he would have put a hinge on. Like,
So
obviously, we're looking after the play. Hindsight's 2020, but that's where I think the growth of the offense, like creative play calling, allow Jalen to call some plays in practice, let him develop that skill set where he takes ownership. And in these moments, he's like, I got you. I know what play I want. Let's roll.
yeah, so again, not trying to interrupt you here, but on the hinges, I'm just trying to illustrate that right here, this first down marker is 11 yards down the field. So like a 13, 14-yard hinge route, like AJ this guy's already got his hips turned, this DB right here. He's running, right? AJ pushes at 13, 14 yards, shuts it down. Ball's already in the air. It's easy to say now.
It's towards the sideline. You're throwing it towards the sideline. He's probably going to catch it around 12.
Ball's in the air. And with this guy backing up like this and nobody dropping underneath, that's pitch and catch all day long. And so you still have your vert in the middle in the event you get a coverage you want with Dallas Goedert, but in this case they didn't. So then you shift the outside, it's an easy completion. That's
and it honestly, it shocks me because they run the most hitches and hinges out of anyone in the league. Like when you watch them, like they just run stop routes, and they have such talented receivers and tight ends that they can win a lot of times on those stop routes. And
so that is, I mean that is. It's a microcosm of a lot of the things we've talked about. I mean, you so eloquently put it over the course of that description. You did it many times over the course of the season where we talk about this stuff. We're not doing this just to play armchair quarterback and say what should have happened. But as you look at this stuff, it's a head scratcher as to why this stuff isn't happening, right? It seems glaringly obvious for guys that are entrenched in the offense like they are to be able to notice these things and see these things. And it's extremely frustrating that we didn't see it play out more this year. And ultimately, in sort of a fitting way, it cost Philly their season. And there was a part of me as I watched them go down the field at the end of the game, I know they were moving the ball. I know they were getting first downs. If you think about where the Niners were at in this game, the fact they don't really have much of a pass rush either, there's no reason the Eagles shouldn't score on this drive. But there was a part of me that thought they probably won't. As much as I wanted them to, there's a part of me that thought they probably won't, given the way this season has gone and given the way the offense has I shouldn't say functioned, has not functioned. And it's been very frustrating, and their season's been over because of it. This isn't the last time we're going to talk about the Eagles season, but that is it for today. We just wanted to, as briefly as possible, jump into why we thought things played out the way it did and provide some thoughts. Our full episode 27 for this week, will air tomorrow, where we'll jump into other wild card games and maybe talk a little bit more about what's next for the Eagles. But nonetheless, that was episode 26. Quick Eagles reaction following their wild card loss. Tough end of the season. And eyes have to be on what's next and what lies ahead because there are significant improvements that have to be made. As always, Season Podcast, thank you very much for listening.